Okay, hi guys. This week I thought I might take a look at my DIY bass traps. I built them a little bit over a year ago, so I thought I might take a kind of a re-evaluation and just see how they've held up and just let you know what I might have done differently and what's good and bad about them. So we can kind of see here one of the examples that didn't hold up fantastically well. I'm not sure if you can see that. I'll try and zoom in. Right here at the edge, some of the staples have kind of let go, so I might have to take a look at that. But in general, it still works as intended. It's just not covered entirely. So I want to take another look at that and fix it up. You can kind of see here there's a small hole which needs to be patched because the entire point of the t-shirt material is to contain the fiberglass so that I'm not breathing it in. But I mean, I'm not disturbing it or messing with it, so it shouldn't be flying around the air too much, or at all, hopefully. But if we take a look at the one above it, if I can do that. Yeah, this one has held together considerably better. The edges are all still completely covered and the staples have held, and in general this one looks a bit better. The artwork isn't as distorted on the t-shirt. One of the main drawbacks to the way that I built these was I had to kind of stretch the t-shirt and staple it at the same time, so it was very difficult, if not impossible, to get the artwork to be centered and completely straight, but the effect is still pretty cool. Obviously this wouldn't be a problem if you were just using plain fabric. The entire point of the project was to try and get this band artwork onto the bass trap as part of one of its features. As far as the frames go, I'm not any kind of a carpenter or anything like that. I have very little woodworking skills, but they held up pretty good. They're not perfectly straight, but they work. Now if you take a look at this top one in the corner, you can kind of see that this edge is not perfect, and even the wood is kind of skewed a bit. I only use one screw to screw in the side to the top piece, so it does tilt if you push it, which isn't great, but it does the job. Again, this is a good example of the skewed artwork where it's just all kind of skewing off to the side, and it shouldn't be, but it doesn't matter. It still looks pretty cool. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing I ever do is really perfect, but it works. As far as the wood stain goes, I probably would do something completely different next time, if I was to do it again. It's very splotchy, and in some places there's like 2 layers, and other places there's just 1. So, but I mean, from a distance it looks great, and I mean, no one's really looking all that up close at these, and functionality is the main thing, and it doesn't affect the functionality of the bass trap. Now you can see the 2 sets on the opposite side of the room. The way I have it set up is as a kind of a treated control section of the room, and then the second half of the room behind me doesn't have as much treatment, so it would be considered like a live section, live room kind of thing, even though it's all one room. 2 in the corners on either side of the desk, and then 2 against the wall either side of my listening position where I sit right in front of the computer. And there is an attempt at getting all of them in the one shot, if you can get what I meant by what I just said. But yeah, it's worked out pretty good, and they look pretty cool. It makes it look more like a studio, and it also makes it look a lot more like a man cave where I'm just surrounded by band artwork of bands that I like. Plus it's functional. I mean, the room sounds far better than it did without them. One of the biggest things that people forget when they're building a control room or a home studio like this is the acoustic treatment. They generally think that just putting up some acoustic foam on the wall is enough. And it is a very important part. Like I have right behind me, right behind the studio desk. They do help with what's called flutter echo, and also help make the place look more like a studio, I guess. But bass traps are really what you need in a small room, like what you would find in a residential setting. Now, I never really measured the room response and did any experimentation to see what I needed. I just went with what is generally recommended, which is the RW30 rock wool in the corners. Realistically, I probably should have more rock wool in the corners behind the studio desk, which would be behind the camera right now, but I didn't want to go too overboard, and also the room sounds really good now, so I don't think I want to mess with that. Adding more without actually doing any measurement would probably end up being just an unnecessary expense. So that's my bass traps. A little bit over a year on from when I built them. They've held up great. If I was to do it again, I would put a bit more time and effort in. I would also probably try and learn a few extra carpentry skills to make the frames a bit better. But I would recommend anyone to check out the video where I built them and try it for yourself. Cheers for watching. Please like and subscribe and check back next week.